up, movie buffs? Thank you so much for stopping by for our finale review of the Disney Plus series Loki. Like, I have to set it up. Be like, have you heard of that show Loki? It's on Disney Plus. Yeah, of course, everyone has. And joining me to discuss this, as he's often done in the past several weeks, and for the past several Marvel shows, I'm joined with Holden Hardman. What's up, Holden?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me over on your channel. Appreciate you guys. If you watched the reaction Jeremy and I did on my channel, thank you for hopping on over. I want to talk. There's a lot of exposition, I feel like, in this one. Not necessarily a bad thing, but a lot of discussion, a lot of revelation. So I want to get into all that for sure.
Good. And because there is a lot to go over, we're probably going to run just a little bit longer than what the shows have been in the past couple of weeks. So buckle up for a slightly more in-depth conversation than usual, because yeah, man, there's a lot to talk about because there was a lot of talking about stuff going on. So we'll go ahead and jump into it. The episode opens up with a kind of travel through space, right? Like I felt like it might be a little reminiscent of 2001 A Space Odyssey or something like that, but you're getting all these cool little historical sound bites, like these huge pivotal moments throughout human history. And one that I picked up on was the Neil Armstrong one giant leap for mankind thing. Did you hear any that like grabbed you?
Yeah, I actually watch the episodes with captions on, so I can see who everyone is. They had Maya Angelou, Neil Armstrong. They had Greta Thunberg, however you say her name. Malala was there. So they mixed the Marvel like quotes, "I could do this all day," with like real people. So I thought that was an interesting. Choice.
It was cool, and it kind of has a cohesive aesthetic to, Rainbow Bridge or some of the kind of interstellar travel that we've seen in the Thor series and in other Marvel movies. So like usual, they're able to evoke images from other stuff that we recognize. But of course, what we're seeing is the two of them traveling through that wormhole portal that Eliath opened up for them in the last episode to end up at the very end of time to find out who is this person, he who remains. And so they show up at this kind of creepy haunted house thing. And one of the first big moments of the episode is Miss Minutes fucking popping out of nowhere. I
knew it. That's why I said it out loud. I go, we knew it. We knew well, she wasn't the main one in charge, but we knew that she was a snake.
Yeah, it was. So does this confirm that she was working for who we find out
he who remains
he who remains the entire time? Does that mean she wasn't really working for Ravonna?
That's how it seems. It seems like she has been in on it with he who remains the entire time. Is he who remains his actual name, or were people right that it was Kang? That was a big conspiracy, or fan theory. Was it Kang or not?
So yeah. And we'll come back to that in just a minute, because Miss Minutes offers the two of them a life together, kind of that thing of the devil whispering in their ear, kind of trying to, tempt them over to doing the thing that she ultimately wants them to do, which is eventually what he who remains his whole objective is in the first place. So she basically says, I can give you guys a life. They say, no, we would prefer free will. And that's kind of the narrative crux of this entire series is what's better, order or free will, because free will can be chaotic. Order is, everything's kind of predetermined for you, but it comes at it keeps things, I guess, moving, keeps things secure in a way. So I thought that was interesting. But all of that build up to say the villain is revealed. It is he who remains. And I'll eat crow, man. Look, I'll say it right now. I hate to be wrong, but I was wrong. I said, and I'll roll the clip right now. Jeremy, what did you say last week? You smug person, you. And then I roll the clip and I come back. And I obviously said that screenwriters should know better than introducing a character in the final episode. And there were so many theories online of like, it's Kang, it's Kang, it's Kang, it's Kang. And I'm like, this is a dumb Mephisto theory. There's no way. So what do you think about the revelation? How does that hit for you?
I was aware of the fan theory. I thought, when people were theorizing that it could be Kang, I looked up, the actor that was going to play Kang. I didn't recognize him in the show immediately, but I thought maybe it is, but they didn't say his name, so I wasn't 100% sure. it absolutely checks out that it's Kang. So I was suspicious, wasn't sure while watching it, but I was on the fence about it.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think they built it up pretty well.
Mhm.
I think that there were seeds planted throughout the series for Marvel fans that were like, hey, it checks out. There's no way it could be something else unless they're just completely lying and manipulating the audience. To me, I don't even know who Kang is, so it means very little to me. And he wasn't named as Kang in this episode, like you said. So like it was, I imagine the people who were very diehard wanting it to be Kang are the ones who are going to be most disappointed by the way that
Probably.
Jonathan Majors portrayed Kang.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm like you. I'm not familiar with Kang really in the comics. I was actually going to say how much I enjoyed his performance because it was funny, but I'm not familiar with the character. So if he's like I'm gonna say if he's like a serious character, I could understand the disappointment, but he made it pretty clear that there are variants of him that are different. So this version of Kang or He Who Remains could have just been the silly one, and the actual villain, the one that they sort of teased with the statue in the TVA at the very end, could be the more traditional comic book Kang. My point is that they're probably going to appease everyone, and they can do that with the multiple timelines and multiple variants and stuff. So
yeah, I actually agree with you. I liked what he was doing. It was definitely a choice. It was distinct, and it was not what I would expect. Not that I had really any expectations, but when you hear about, oh, this Kang guy, he's going to be the next phase villain, and then you are introduced to him, and he's pretty unassuming. He's also eating an apple the very moment you meet him, and you're like, hey, that's a thing to show that he's smug. Like that's a trope that they use a lot of times because he's a know-it-all. He literally knows everything, and he keeps coming back to that, to the point that he reveals to Sylvie and Loki, this is exactly what was supposed to happen. He led the way. He brought them to him.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to see where to go with that.
Yeah, that's all right. In a way, it's almost like Kang is the screenwriter. Like they're the storytellers, and he even bust open a script at one point and kind of says, like, everything that's happening right now, it's all predetermined. What do you think about that kind of storytelling of like, I guess
somebody's just been in control the whole time.
Yeah.
They don't really show us they didn't really show us him doing that. You know, he's just sort of sitting at a desk. There's not like how like I want to see how he's actually pulling the strings. You know, how did he lay down the path? He just sort of show up and he's there, and all we know is that Miss Minutes is sort of in on it. I really enjoyed the I guess the choice that he gave the two Lokis and how that all kind of unfolded. I think that this episode kind of being we have to reveal everything. It's the final episode of the season. I guess complements episode 5, which I felt was, and I still kind of feel was the highlight of the entire series. Yes. I just felt seeing all the Lokis together, Richard E. Grant there doing his ridiculous thing, Eliath. I think that was the peak. And then this is kind of just like a little bit of that fan service, answering questions, making more questions. But I enjoyed it. I also am surprised, and maybe I'm just being naive, about Loki actually changing when confronted or when given the opportunity to have the throne, and not just the throne of Asgard or Earth, but like time, like everything. And he seemed to me to be genuine. Like, I don't want that. I gave you my loyalty to Sylvie. So what did you think about that?
Yeah, that's a really good. Oh, of course. Hold up. Can you hear that?
Yeah. Well, no, I can't hear anything on here.
Okay.
I got freaking lawnmowers outside too. I don't know what you got.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
The entire reaction is just a freaking right outside my window. It sounds like I'm gonna have to cut that audio
out. What was it? Oh yeah. That's a really that's kind of the thing about this entire series so far, is the goal was always to redeem Loki. And Kang says at one point, we've all done horrible, terrible, reprehensible things, looking directly at Loki. But yeah, these 6 episodes really have led me to believe that Loki is now a changed person. When Jonathan Majors as Kang slid the little bracelet across the table, and I thought in my head, Loki is going to go for that thing like immediately. I thought that was going to be the fight that they had, was trying to rush to see who got it first. But the whole time Loki is, he disarms himself and he tells Sylvie basically, I love you. I would, I think that we should let things remain as they are so that everything doesn't go into complete chaos. And she is still so, I guess, fixated on revenge that the consequences don't matter near as much as the act itself. So I think it's interesting that they chose to redeem the character of Loki, but it also doesn't surprise me at all because people responded so positively to Tom Hiddleston in that role.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think about Sylvie, like, not believing or just thinking that Kang was lying the entire time, especially when Loki's like, I'm a liar? I feel like you're a liar too, technically, but it seemed real to me, and then I guess why would she, maybe it's part of her character, so consumed with just wanting to kill him that she totally ignored the potential consequences when all Loki was saying was, I just want to talk about it. She was just convinced, I guess, that he wanted the throne and Kang was lying. But I feel like she's been smarter throughout the series than to just be like, nah, I'm just going to go kill him and not consider it.
It really did seem like that. Like if Loki was building to this redemption moment, it did seem like Sylvie was probably on a similar path, that once confronted with it, she was going to realize that something was more important than revenge. But, to play the other side of that, Loki had established, I mean, even just superficially, a relationship with his family and with Thor in a way that Sylvie was never able to. Sylvie never had anything else other than this one quest and this one thing that she had to take off of her box. So, when the opportunity presented itself, I could see why she did it, but it did seem like that there was a chance for her to obviously not go that way. But in addition to this conflict that's going on there, while Loki and Sylvie are fighting to kind of decide the fate of the multiverse, which also Kang lays out the whole thing about the multiverse, and we know where things are headed, but Ravonna is confronted by Mobius, and Mobius basically says, you can click your little button thing to bring in the TVA, but it's not going to play out how you expected it to, because he revealed him and B-15 got to the bottom of what was happening. So they brought the TVA agents to where Ravonna was still like a teacher or something like that. The other variant version of herself, revealing to all these agents that, hey, if the person in charge is a variant, it proves that we're all variants. And so the TVA kind of starts to unravel at this point. And I'm curious, like, for me, the idea of the multiverse feels so ominous, even though it's attached to free will. Like, does that bring up an interesting, like, ethical question? Did it make you start wondering, like, what is better? Like, would it be better to know that you could maintain the status quo, or know that you had infinite choices, but that it could open the door to things that are way worse?
Yeah. Well, now we're getting into just general philosophy. I feel like, does free will even exist at all in real life?
Yeah.
As a question that's been posed by the philosophers for years. I am a believer, I guess, in free will, I suppose. And the idea of there being multiple branches in reality, that I take two separate choices infinitely, I think is an actual, like, real world theory, but as far as we know, as far as I know, that's reality right now. I mean, right now I could choose to sit here and do this video with Jeremy, or I could jump out of the window. Is there some reality where I just jump out the window? I have the free will to do it. I mean, I could, why not, but we live in a society of consequences and, stuff like that. So
yeah, it is. It's a very interesting philosophical question that I don't think that Marvel or anybody is really going to be able to address in a way that feels really meaningful. But I like the fact that they're even proposing those kind of questions. I find that to be interesting. And maybe because we know it's the multiverse of madness, and that these other Kangs can be so much worse than the other, that it has an ominous vibe, while at the same time, it's like breaking these chains of oppression. As the TVA falls, it brings rise to something that, you know, and he even says that about dictators, you know, if you take one dictator out of power, who's gonna fill that vacuum? So I really like that. I thought that was one of the coolest things about this series in particular. But yeah, now we're at this really weird place where if you start to think about time travel, like how did he end up? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, there's no end to this.
That's all right. I think the appeal to this type of fiction, and we're seeing it now with the multiverse, we're seeing it with the Disney animated What If series, is like in real life, once that choice is made, it's permanent. You know what I mean? Like if you marry somebody or if you kill somebody or something, it's permanent. So I think the fiction of, I wonder, can I just see what would happen if this happened over here or if I made that choice? And so we can kind of see that play out through a multiverse lens or through a Disney What If or a Disney Plus What If lens. Whereas in real life, we don't get that. When the choice is made, we'll never know what if, you know, we'll never know what could have been. So I think that's kind of an appeal to the fiction. You know, what if Peter Parker was never bitten by the spider? What would have happened? Who would have been bitten? You know?
Yeah, my idea. What if Rhodey from Iron Man and Edward Norton's Hulk faced off against Mark Ruffalo's Hulk and Don Cheadle's War Machine? Well,
in an infinite multiverse, it happens infinitely. Like there's everything you could think of. If it's an infinite multiverse, would happen. So here's a concern I have. I don't know to what extent Loki will affect the rest of the MCU. It seems like, you know, it's all canon, I guess. It's all a part of it. So how will this affect our journey so far? Will this affect WandaVision? Will this affect the first Avengers movie? You know, to what extent? So maybe these are answers. Maybe these are questions that will be answered in Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, where maybe the whole movie will be about Doctor Strange trying to fix it, Scarlet Witch being maybe a villain, or vice versa, or something to that effect, where they're trying to correct it. Because that feels like an area where Doctor Strange would come in, and he's supposed to protect, you know, the realms. Does that not include our timeline as well? As a matter of fact, that's what the whole freaking time stone thing was in Endgame, was to preserve the flow of our reality. So I could see it all connecting.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing because we are so invested in this prime timeline where the fate of these versions of reality matter so much. However, this is already like a divergent Loki that we're following through this series. So like at any point in time, they can just readjust and bring back characters or bring in other characters, or we could switch timelines completely. So maybe in this one timeline, Doctor Strange is fighting to preserve the multiverse, but over in this other time, like the possibilities are endless. And I think that works both in favor and against.
Agreed.
You know, it's a very difficult thing to navigate.
Yeah. The journey we've gone through from like the first Iron Man to now, where, and you know, and it's a double-edged sword. I love the idea of characters and variations of characters coming together. I still am holding out to see Spider-Man and Captain America doing something together, you know, because we didn't get that. We got Spider-Man and Tony Stark together.
Yeah.
So I want to see that kind of pair. They could bring back Robert Downey Jr. for all they care. And, you know, I just want them to be careful. I'm not saying that they aren't. I think that they're pretty smart about the property that they have. At least they've shown so far. But I don't want Endgame to feel cheapened by just bringing back Iron Man. I don't want to, you know, I don't want the past to not matter.
Yeah. I agree completely with that. And I think, like you said, so far they've been very calculated and very smart about it. And I do have confidence with things moving forward. When you ask a specific question about how much is this going to matter, I'm shocked because this proves now that unless you have Disney Plus and unless you are watching those MCU shows, you're not going to know what the hell is going on in the movies anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder how, let's say that Doctor Strange does pick up or is involved with this somehow. Are you going to like recap Loki in the movie? You know, like how?
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll have just Wong give some exposition with the, you know, hologram again. There's been a divergent in the branch of time, you know, and we got to fix it.
And you can see it on Disney Plus.
Yeah. Premiere access, $30.
Yeah.
Which is what I did for Black Widow. So
And if you guys want to hear a little bit of me and Holden talk about that, make sure to check down in the description. I'll post a link because we are going to talk a minute about it. So anyways, about Loki, I feel like all in all, this ended up being a pretty good show. It didn't disappoint me in a way that I'm sure that some people are going to be disappointed, and it didn't overwhelm me with love and adulation in the way that I'm sure it will some people. For me, it hit the positive side of the spectrum for sure. There are elements of the series that I really loved, in particular the premise itself and the world that was created for it. I like the performances of the lead characters. For me, I'm gonna go with out of 10, I'm gonna go with a 7.5. Holden, what do you think about a rating, quantifying it?
I'm right at a 7.5 too. I feel like this show was great. I feel like it was really good. It had some highs. It had some filler, I guess. I think easily the best episode is episode 5.
Yes.
Episode 6, I feel like, was that good answering questions. They tried to give us a little bit of action with the two Loki and Sylvie fighting. Otherwise, there really wouldn't have been anything. It would have been all exposition. So, introduced an interesting villain, how they'll handle Kang and all that stuff. So, a good little finish there, but overall about a 7.5.
So we're pretty much in agreement there. Obviously, when Loki realizes where he's at the TVA at the end, he is in this other multiverse timeline where Kang actually is already ruling. We also know through a mid-credit scene that Loki will be returning for a season 2. So I gotta ask, are we keeping the Loki stuff in this pocket universe that is happening simultaneously while the MCU main stuff is happening, or is it going to kind of interweave back and forth? What do you think?
I don't know, man. They lead me to believe that this affects the main everything. I'm also curious as to how the time travel aspect in Endgame matters in all of this, because there's literally the TVA that deals with any branches that deal with things that aren't supposed to go the way they're supposed to or outside of time. They say early in the show that was supposed to happen, but then you have Cap. I mean, Cap literally was just going throughout time, putting the Infinity Stones back. So does that not matter? And if not, why does that not matter? Why did the TVA not arrest Captain America? What? Or maybe they did, and the old man we saw was somebody else.
What?
What?
Yeah, what a mess. I mean, not a mess, but that's really interesting. I mean, that's the thing about time travel and trying to wrap your head around it. And I would actually love to hear some of you contribute your thoughts down in the comments section, because it's a lot to chew on. What are your theories about the MCU moving forward? Let us know down in the comment section. Also, as Holden mentioned at the very top of this video, you can head over and check out our reaction to episode 6 of Loki on his channel. There will be a link down in the description. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, take a second to click the thumbs up button. It really helps the channel out. And if you want to stay up to date with all of the terrible content, all you got to do is subscribe, click the bell to enable notifications, and then cross your fingers, because sometimes those notifications don't come through. Hey, you can just check back every couple days also. But thank you very much. And on behalf of both me and Holden, be terrible.